Today's screencast is about writing a lab report. It is on the bright blue worksheet that you were handed in class today. As scientists, we do a lot of communicating, and one of the things that we communicate is the results and the things that we've learned from our experiments. Now, some of the paper may have gotten chopped off, but I want to make sure that you know that you're going to be filling in the blanks using the yellow words. Okay, so the title should be something that describes the lab activity. Make sure that you don't copy the original title of the lab. Tomorrow's lab, the Rainbow Lab, is going to be called the Rainbow Lab on the board, but you have to make up something different for it. The objectives are written in the form of a question or a sentence, and it explains the purpose or the learning goals of the lab. The hypothesis is an educated prediction about the results. It's also a proposed answer to the objective question. So make sure that when you write your hypothesis, you also give a because statement. You don't just randomly say what's going to happen in the lab without predicting why that's going to happen. I generally don't like to use the words educated guess because guess has a randomness about it that we don't want to promote. So the materials are a list of supplies, and it can be adjusted after the lab is over. And the procedures are how you conduct the experiment. It's about the steps that you use for the experiments. If you read all the handouts that you're given before you begin the activity, you need to make sure that you read each page, front and back. If there's a space for you to write procedures, make sure that you list each step of the activity. Keep it short and simple. In other words, paraphrase it. As you're writing out your procedures, do not copy the lab directions word for word. Make sure that you paraphrase. Review the instructions with a teammate before beginning, especially if someone has been absent or didn't get their work done. Make sure that you adjust the procedures if you did something different during the experiment. When you're doing observations, you'll need to use all of your senses to observe while the lab activity is occurring. Use as many of the 5 senses as I tell you you're allowed to use. A lot of times we won't be using the sense of taste because it could be dangerous to you. So your sense of smell, your sense of sight, sometimes you'll be sensing with your sense of touch, and of course your sense of hearing. Make sure that you record your observations as you're performing the lab, not afterwards, not while you're at home trying to remember what everything is that you learned in the lab. As you're finished with your observations, then you have to do some data analysis. And so you'll be organizing data into data tables or graphs or charts, and it depends on what kind of lab we're doing. You'll need to answer any questions on the lab handout about observations that you've made. And do not give opinions or about the results. Just discuss the facts only here. After you're done with the data analysis, you'll be writing a paragraph to compare your hypothesis to your results. You'll use the complete paragraph format from your notebook, which means there probably will be 7 to 8 sentences. As you answer all of the questions about the data analysis and the conclusions, you may have to wrap it up in your conclusion paragraph. Please don't repeat the results in your conclusion paragraph. I can see the results in your lab report without having to revisit them with your conclusion paragraph. Once you've answered the questions and created your comparison between your hypothesis and your results, you're going to have to go and list any errors that might have been made that could have affected the lab results, and make a sentence about how we could do a different activity learning the same concept. Make sure as you write your conclusions that you do not add things like you thought this lab was hard or you thought it was fun. You don't want to put in opinions. That becomes fluff. And of course, all of your work in science must be fluff-free.